What is up, my friend? Welcome to episode 31 of the Anthony John Mix podcast. And today is another Sunday sermon edition. And I feel it'd be careless if I didn't talk about conquering this whole coronavirus thing. And I honestly feel like it would be an injustice today if I did not equip you with some keys to overcome fear and anxiety. So just a warning, today I'm going to be bringing you some fire. So you better buckle up because today's message is not for the weak of heart. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Welcome to the Anthony John Amix podcast, the one and only podcast designed to help you become unstoppable in life and business. My name is Anthony John Amix. My friends call me AJ, and my goal with this podcast is to help you remember who you truly are so you can maintain your center in the chaos, embody your potential, and unlock freedom in your life and business. That being said, let's get into today's show.
All right, welcome back. So I'm just going to cut to the chase today. The world is facing its deepest fear right now, which is death. Most people are completely terrified of dying, yet death is part of the human experience only always. And COVID-19 is the bringer of this fear, and it is forcing people to deal with their deepest, darkest, unloved parts of themselves, and people have no fucking clue how to handle this thing. Now, thankfully, for the past 10 plus years, something way bigger than me has been preparing me for this. I work from home. My wife works from home. We have a great income. We're all healthy and young. And even though we're quarantined right now, not much has really changed for us. We go to our empty office. We walk in the nature preserve behind our house. Our nanny is completely amazing and comes to help us with our daughter. Yet people all around the world are in a panic, wondering if this is the end of the world. All over the media, people are blaming and shaming all kinds of things. People are rushing to the grocery stores to hoard food and toilet paper. Americans are blaming the Chinese, calling this the Chinese virus. And I hear people in Europe saying it's the Americans' fault and how our country is out to get China and attempting to spin the narrative because America wants to go into a third world war. I hear my Romanian father-in-law tell my wife that this is a conspiracy for the American bakes to make more money, and I watch as everyday people are vandalizing the cars of Chinese Americans, and I've seen news reports of a man beating a pregnant woman because he thought she had the coronavirus. And it's stories like these that are sickening. And when I see and hear these things, there's this anger that courses through my body because I want something to change because I know we as humans are better than this. Beyond our fear, every single human being on the planet is a fucking soul. And this, more than ever, is a time to remember who you are. For hundreds of years now, our culture has looked outside of themselves to find peace, to find meaning, to find a level of power to create real-world results and find a sense of meaning in this earth. And now, my friend, it is a time to wake up and know that peace, power, and profits are nowhere to be found out there. Instead, they're inside you. And over the past few weeks, I've been talking about how when we blame those outside of us for our experience, we give away our power. We give away the ultimate gift every single human being on the planet has been given, which is agency, which is our ability to choose who we will be and how we will act moment by moment by moment. And this is exactly what so many people are not doing and have no clue of how to do in this season. It's like they're afraid to sit in the pocket and fall in love with what is. And they're reacting to all of their fears and all of their insecurities, and it's their shadows that are running them instead of remembering who they are, which is the light that can cast out any darkness. Now, my perspective on this whole virus thing is it's nothing more than the fears of man made manifest into form. It's like things have gotten so good that the minds of men had nothing to worry about, so they created things to worry about. I mean, here in America, the politicians have been divided more than ever. Both parties are constantly blaming one another. The media is constantly streaming the nonsense fear of the political nonsense, and the hearts of men have been buying into and feeding that fear. And this virus is that fear made manifest into form. So now here there is this virus consuming the hopes and dreams of humanity. And maybe the reason this is happening is because those in fear, worry, and doubt continue to look outside of themselves for comfort and for protection. Now, I'm here to tell you, my friend, that this is a time to make peace and resolve those unloved parts of yourself. And if you will do so, you will find a power deeper than any power you've ever experienced. You will find a freedom that money cannot buy, and you will find a light that casts out all darkness. Now, there's a lot history can teach us with how to handle this situation and how to conquer this coronavirus and overcome all of our fears and anxiety in the process. In 2 Kings 25, starting in verse 8, it says, "On the 7th day of the 5th month, in the 19th year of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, Nebuzaradan," I'm going to butcher these names, "commander of the imperial guard and official of the king of Babylon, came to Jerusalem. He set fire to the temple of the Lord, the royal palace, and all of the houses of Jerusalem. Every important building he burned down. The whole Babylonian army under the commander of the imperial guard broke down the walls around Jerusalem. Nebuzaradan, the commander of the guard, carried into exile the people who remained in the city, along with the rest of the populace and those who had deserted the king of Babylon." Now, this is more than just a story in the Old Testament, because historians have proved more than 2,600 years ago this happened. So this is history. A city of wonderful people were conquered and forced into exile. Their lives, their homes, their families destroyed. Now, a similar occurrence is happening in China, Italy, Spain, and now America and all of the other countries around the globe. And we all have a choice to keep blaming, to keep shaming, keep looking outside of ourselves for someone or something to save us, to be a victim of our circumstances, or we can man the fuck up and learn how to source our own joy, peace, clarity, certainty, and faith. Not just now, but always. In 539 BC, the Persians under King Cyrus overthrew the Babylonians, and this new king then established a policy of letting foreigners return home. Cyrus issued a decree saying the Hebrews could return to Judah and rebuild the temple in Jerusalem, and during this time, 50,000 Jews accepted the offer to go home, while others decided to stay in their homes and jobs in the new Persia. And they watched as powerful Persian kings like Cyrus and Darius and Xerxes and Artaxerxes followed in succession. One of the families that chose to stay in Persia were the grandparents of Nehemiah. Now, Nehemiah was the cupbearer of the Persian king named Artaxerxes, and in those days, the cupbearer was an honored and influential position. As a cupbearer, Nehemiah was in close and confidential contact with the king, and one of Nehemiah's duties was to guard against anyone poisoning something the king might drink. Now, Nehemiah had become cupbearer by being an intelligent and loyal worker in the court of Artaxerxes, and his father had instilled a love of Judah into his son. Now, besides certifying that the wine served to Artaxerxes was safe, Nehemiah was a confidant and counselor to the king. And in the book of Nehemiah in the Old Testament of the Bible, we learn a lot about Nehemiah and his leadership. And I feel in the season of life, if we want to conquer this coronavirus and overcome our fear and anxiety, there is wisdom to glean and implement from Nehemiah. In the book of Nehemiah, it's pretty much like written from his firsthand perspective. And in Nehemiah 1, it says, "In the month of Kislev," which is basically, sometime between November and December, according to the smart scholars, "in the 20th year, while I was in the citadel of Susa, one of my brothers came from Judah with some other men, and I questioned them about the Jewish remnant that had survived the exile, and also about Jerusalem. And they said to me, 'Those who survived the exile are back in the province are in great trouble and disgrace. The wall of Jerusalem is broken down, and its gates have been burned with fire.' When I heard these things, I sat down and wept. For some days I mourned and fasted and prayed before the God of heaven." Now, like Nehemiah, we have heard news this week that hurts. And maybe you're angry, or maybe you're sad, or maybe you're fearful. I know I felt all of these things this week. And I'm here to tell you, it's totally okay. When Nehemiah heard the news about the Jewish remnant that had survived the exile and how they were in trouble and the wall of Jerusalem was broken and burned, he wept. For days, the guy mourned and fasted and prayed. Did he sit there and blame the Babylonians or the Persians or God or anyone else? No. He immediately gave himself permission to feel the feels, and in his case, it was sadness. And for days, he mourned. He allowed the sadness to move through him. He didn't sedate it with Netflix. Not that he could have if he wanted. That's way before it ever existed. He didn't attempt to distract himself with work. He didn't ask God to come down and save him and give him strength. Instead, the man went inward. He fasted. He prayed, seeking guidance and clarity from God, universe, source, whatever name you want to call that thing that dwells within you, that thing that dwells within him and every human on the planet. So one of my questions to you in this midst of this corona scare is, how often are you tuning inward? Not asking for your God to come save you, but rather to simply commune with spirit, to commune with source, to commune with universe, or whatever word you want to call that thing that's way bigger than you. To weaponize your mind, body, and soul, to give your fears over to the thing that is greater than you, to allow your fears and all of the feels to move through you. Unfortunately, many people today have forgotten how to plug into source. But not me, my friend, not my clients. Nah, this is the shit I've been preaching in my Facebook posts and on this podcast way before this virus. There is a reason I can personally look death in the eye and smile. There is a reason I can look darkness in the eye and be the light. There is a reason when fate whispers to the warrior, you cannot withstand the storm, I can whisper back, I am the storm, motherfucker. Now, if you want to overcome fear and anxiety, here's what I must say to you. Rise up. Wake up. Stop looking to the things or people outside of yourself to encourage you. Outside of the thoughts you think, the feelings you feel, the body that you have to move, you are a soul in control. And yet on the flip side, you are also the thoughts you think, the feelings you feel, the body that you have. And this, my friend, is the paradox. In Matthew 7:13, when Jesus was delivering his infamous Sermon on the Mount, he talked about a concept known as the straight and narrow. In verse 13, he says, enter through the narrow gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many enter through it. But small is the gate and narrow the road that leads to life, and only a few find it. And have you considered the paradox is the straight and narrow Jesus speaks of? And in the paradox, you find power. A power that transcends any limit the mind of man attempts to place on you. A peace that surpasses understanding, that gives you the power, the strength, and the courage to rise up and create the experience you want to experience as a human here and now. And so many people right now are walking on that broad road, constantly looking outside of themselves for peace, for certainty, for clarity, and for courage. And yet Nehemiah knew of this. And he gave himself permission to embrace the paradox. And in Nehemiah 1, starting in verse 5, Nehemiah started to pray, Lord, the God of heaven, the great and awesome God who keeps his covenant of love with those who love him and keep his commandments. Let your ear be attentive and your eyes open to hear the prayer your servant is praying before you, day and night for your servants, the people of Israel. I confess the sins we Israelites, including myself and my father's family, have committed against you. We have acted very wickedly toward you. We have not obeyed the commands, the decrees, and laws you gave your servant Moses. Remember the instruction you gave your servant Moses, saying, if you are unfaithful, I will scatter you among the nations. But if you return to me and obey my commands, then even if your exiled people are at the farthest horizon, I will gather them from there and bring them to the place I have chosen as a dwelling for my name. They are your servants and your people whom you redeem by your great strength and your mighty hand. Lord, let your ear be attentive to the prayer of this your servant and to the prayer of your servants who delight in revering your name. Give your servant success today by granting him favor in the presence of this man. Like Nehemiah, I too believe we have acted very wickedly toward this thing we call God, consciousness, spirit, universe. Now, to be clear, I'm not saying we are sinners and that we're going to hell. That is not what I'm saying. What I am saying is so many people around the globe have neglected tuning into and honoring the God, the source, the spirit within themselves, that they are lost and panicking in this chaos. Therefore, creating their own version of hell on earth. And if we want to overcome anxiety, if we want to overcome our fears, allow this event to serve as a wake-up call to return to remembering who you are, which is the soul in control, and know that God's source consciousness will gather the scattered people from the Father's horizons and bring them to the place he has chosen. And know from that place, my friend, you can create any results that you want in this lifetime. And this does not require you to go to church or believe in Jesus or believe in anything else. It simply means to remember that you are God in flesh. On one hand, you are made of flesh and blood, and your body will return to the dirt and from which it was formed. And on the other hand, you are a soul who is here to embody a uniquely divine purpose. And which is true? Both. Because this is the paradox. In Nehemiah chapter 2, it says, "In the month of Nisan, in the 20th year of King Artaxerxes, when wine was brought for him, I took the wine and gave it to the king. I had not been sad in his presence before, so the king asked me, 'Why does your face look so sad when you're not ill? This can be nothing but sadness of heart.' I was very much afraid, but I said to the king, 'May the king live forever. Why should my face not look sad when the city where my ancestors are buried lies in ruins and its gates have been destroyed by fire?' The king said to me, 'What is it that you want?' Then I prayed to the God of heaven, and I answered the king, 'If it pleases the king, and if your servant has found favor in his sight, let him send me to the city in Judah where my ancestors are buried so that I can rebuild it.'" Now, I love this part of the story, and it serves as another great key to overcoming fear and anxiety. In verse 4, Nehemiah said, "He prayed to God of heaven and answered the king." Now, I believe this means he tuned into his higher self, to God within him, to find the answer of what to say. You know, I feel like our ancestors were so much more plugged into this way of being, like being attuned to the source within them. And here we are in the Western world, we have completely pretty much forgotten how to be that plugged in on most days. It's like our values have shifted away from the thing that gives us life. And most people have traded in their connection to their soul for their pursuit of fortune and fame. Now, the cool thing is, it is 100% possible to stay fucking plugged into source through movement, through breath work, meditation, like prayer and all these other modalities, and still create fortune and fame if that's what you want to experience. Like, I don't believe any of the paths are greater than another. They're just simply paths, and there are multiple paths up the mountain. And Nehemiah demonstrates this in this story, and then from that place of power, he uses his skill sets to speak to the king in a way that the king will listen. So the lesson for us here is to remember to tap in, to plug in, to see what wants to come through us, and also use our skill sets and our mindsets to take action and deliver our truth to the world. Now, my encouragement to you in the season is to allow this virus to be a wake-up call, to learn how to plug back into source so you can take inspired action. In Nehemiah 2, verse 8, we learn that Artaxerxes, with the queen sitting beside him, granted Nehemiah his request. And because of his love for Nehemiah, the king even gave Nehemiah letters to the governors of the land he would cross, as well as an armed escorts. And then after arriving in Jerusalem, Nehemiah arose in the night for a secret inspection of the wall. And in Nehemiah 2, verse 17, Nehemiah speaks to the people saying, "Come, let us rebuild the wall so our city will no longer be a disgrace." And so they began the good work. Now, the lesson here in this time of crisis is to remember the vision you are fighting for. Like with all of the craziness floating around on social media and the traditional media outlets, and with all the talks with friends, employees, and others, it can be ridiculously easy to forget why you're doing what you're doing right now. Like, it's easy to get worried about the economy. It's easy to get worried about falling into another great recession, or worse, a great depression. So in this season, keep the faith. Like, trust in your ability to create results in this season. Like, keep your eye on the prize. Stay focused on the vision that you know you are here to create. And just like Nehemiah, know that you're here to do good work. And by the way, you don't have to have it all figured out. You must just know that you will do what you can. You must know that you have the capacity to withstand the fire as long as you're willing to stay plugged into your soul and each and every day taking action towards creating your big vision. Now let's look at some of the other lessons from Nehemiah. In Nehemiah chapters 2 and 3, it goes on to tell about how the people of Judah come together to rebuild the wall. And by chapter 4, they have half of the wall rebuilt and they start to encounter some resistance. And remember, in some of my past Sunday sermons, I talked about how resistance in this life is inevitable. Like contrast is part of the human experience, and ultimately the resistance is what makes this game worth playing. And if you don't remember this, then just simply go back and listen to episodes 25 and 27 if you need a refresher. Now, in Nehemiah 4, starting in verse 7, it says, "When Sanballat, Tobiah, and the Arabs, the Ammonites, and the people of Ashdod heard that the repairs to Jerusalem's walls had gone ahead, and that the gaps were being closed, they were very angry. They all plotted together to come and fight Jerusalem and stir up trouble against it. But Nehemiah said, 'We prayed to our God and posted a guard day and night to meet this threat.'" And in verse 13 it says, "Therefore I stationed some of the people behind the lowest points of the wall at the exposed places, posting them by families with their swords, spears, and bows." And now my personal favorite part of the story is in verse 17. It says, "Those who carried materials did their work with one hand and held a weapon in the other, and each of the builders wore his sword at his side as he worked." Now this, my friend, is the paradox embodied. In one hand, they did their work, and in the other hand, they held a weapon. What a beautiful illustration for this time that we're in. Now, here's the thing. If you want to overcome fear and anxiety, then go to work doing what's required to control what you can control, and also stay focused on doing the work you feel called to do. Like, it's healthy to be a peaceful warrior. I feel like people have been conditioned to believe that those who are spiritual are weak, that they must just turn the other cheek and be run over like doormats. Now, this is not what I've learned. I've discovered that we can be a full-on warrior, and we can also go to war from a place of peace. We can dig deep and be super gritty when the going gets tough. And at the same time, we can do so from a place of peace and joy and love. So I'd have you consider that you cannot control what happens with COVID-19. Yet you can heed the instruction of the people who are experts on this stuff. You cannot control if the entire country or the world erupts into martial law and people bang down your door, yet you can control your psyche and your mindset and your thoughts. And if you're anything like me who grew up on a farm, then you can make sure your shotgun is cleaned and loaded. And you cannot control if the economy collapses, yet you can control staying focused on solving problems and being financially compensated for your solutions. You can control on feeding your mind with positive messages. You can control doing your own shadow work. You can control gaining the skill sets to win in any economy. You can control surrounding yourself with people who inspire and strengthen you. So if you really want to overcome fear and anxiety, then devote your time and your energy and your resources to the things you can control and embrace the paradox. One where you focus on doing the work you feel called to do, and you're willing to be prepared to handle what life may throw at you. Now, the end result for Nehemiah in this story is he rebuilt the wall in 52 days, something no one thought he could do. So in this trying season, I invite you to be more like Nehemiah, to plug into that thing that's way greater than you, and to go to work on doing what's required to bring your big vision to life. Now is not a time to slow down. Now is a time to dig deep and do what's required. In John 1, it says, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Through him all things were made. Without him nothing was made that has been made. In him was life, and that life was the light of all mankind. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it." Remember this day. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it ever. Not in the time of Nehemiah, not in World War I, not in World War II, and sure as hell not fucking now. Remember this day who you are, the soul in control, capable of creating anything you want on this planet. So my invitation to you this day is this. Where in your life are you giving too much attention to the things you have absolutely no control of? And how starting today can you take the time to plug into Source to experience the peace that surpasses all understanding, to access a place of power that transcends limits and move forth, shining your light in a way that casts out all darkness so you secure profits for you, your family, and your business. And what may be possible for you by sitting in that pocket, sourcing your own joy, your own peace, and taking inspired action on the vision that you've been called to. Told you, my friend, I had some fire for you today. So that's going to do it for this episode of the Anthony John Amyx podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. Next week, I'm thinking about doing a live 2-hour training all about how to experience peace in the midst of chaos. For the past 3 years, I've been equipping my personal clients and those who've attended the Uprising experience with the mindsets and the skill sets and the body sets of sourcing their own peace in the midst of any storm. And unfortunately, many people have been conditioned to look outside of themselves for answers, and they do not understand, like Nehemiah did, how to plug into the God within themselves. I've personally tried many paths, from meditation to 10-day silent retreats to plant medicine and a lot more, and my favorite path for creating peace by far is breathwork. So I thought next week, if I get enough interest, I'll host that live training inside my Shift community to teach you how to source your own peace in certainty and uncertainty. Now, if this is something that speaks to you and you'd like to be a part of that, make sure you just join my Shift community, and it's free, and you can do that at ajamyx.com/community. So my friend, blessings to you, my friend, blessings to your loved ones, and may peace be upon you in this time and always. And remember, you are way more powerful than you ever know. And if you give me a chance and join the Shift community at ajamyx.com/community, I'm happy to help you remember. So until next time, my friend, I'm out. Peace.
Well, that's all I've got for this episode of the Anthony John Amyx podcast, but we have plenty more to help you become unstoppable in life and business. So head on over to ajamyx.com for exclusive resources, information, and tools to help you break through to a new level of freedom, purpose, and success. I look forward to having you back for the next episode. Bye for now.